Hello everyone, and welcome to our latest project video. Today, we will be showcasing the red decoupage and plaster panel project by SollyJo. To get the project started, SollyJo applied a base coat of Nuit Parisienne by Magic Paint to the entire MDF board canvas. Once she was satisfied with the application of her base coat, she applied a layer of Posh Chalk Crackling gel on top. Those first two steps were done in advance so that each coat had enough time to dry naturally. SollyJo's next step was to apply Posh Chalk Crackling paste. As you can see, the crackling paste is quite stiff when you first open it, but it will quickly loosen when stirred. Due to the somewhat translucent nature of the crackling paste, SollyJo decided to decant some onto an old WoodUglue board in order to colour it. She stirred in some of the Posh Chalk Arctic White colour kick to remove this translucence, instead creating a bright white colour that will serve as the perfect backdrop for the decoupage she planned to apply later. The white crackling paste mixture was then applied using a Posh Chalk Premium finishing trowel. SollyJo purposely applied the mixture somewhat unevenly to create interesting textures and a bit more visual variance. While this layer was being force dried with a heat gun, you could see the cracks forming all across the surface. Next, it was time to apply the decoupage. SollyJo had selected the Posh Chalk Muller's Peonies and Posh Script decoupage papers for this project. She had actually used sections of these pieces of decoupage in previous projects, but as she wanted to create a naturally aged aesthetic, the remaining sections would work perfectly in this context. She began by tearing an irregularly shaped section out of the Posh Chalk Muller's Peonies decoupage that would fit the amount of space she had available. This was done using a water pen and then tearing, in order to avoid attention-grabbing straight edges that would be much harder to blend in or hide somehow later. As you can see, SollyJo even laid the section of decoupage on top of her canvas to check if any other parts would need to be torn off first. Once she was satisfied with the size of her decoupage section, she applied a coat of Posh Chalk Pigment Infusor to the entire canvas with a Posh Chalk Small Smooth and Blend brush before laying the section on top of the freshly applied infusor. A clean and dry Posh Chalk Smooth and Blend brush was then used to smooth the decoupage down. Due to how strong the Posh Chalk decoupage paper is, she was able to lift certain sections up and smooth them down again to remove any creases or bubbles that formed. As you can see, SollyJo noticed that the top edge of the decoupage section wasn't fully adhered, but this was easily fixed by lifting that portion off of the surface and applying a little more infusor underneath. Then, to finalise the decoupage application, SollyJo applied another coat of Posh Chalk Pigment Infusor on top, again using a Posh Chalk Small Smooth and Blend brush. Next it was time for SollyJo to apply the Posh Chalk Posh Script decoupage to her piece. First, she placed the canvas on top of the decoupage paper so she could remove the exact right amount to cover the entire surface. She again used a water pen to tear this section out. Now that she had an appropriately sized section of her chosen decoupage, she applied a coat of infusor to the surface and then laid the section on top of the previous design. She smoothed this down in certain areas, and due to the translucent nature of the decoupage, the design of Muller's Peonies still showed through, but with the design of Posh Script overlaying it. Then, to contribute to the naturally aged aesthetic she'd been aiming for, she tore off parts of the Posh Script decoupage and applied them to different parts of the canvas. SollyJo specifically wanted the colourful flowers to really pop, so she made sure not to cover up this part of the Muller's Peonies design as much. After applying another coat of infusor to the entire surface, it was force dried with a heat gun. The next stage of this project was to fill some of the empty space on the edges of the canvas. SollyJo opted to use Posh Chalk metallic pastes for this, starting by dabbing on the Posh Chalk green bronze metallic paste using a damp sea sponge. When she first opened the pot of paste, it was a little bit stiff, so as you can see, she stirred in some of the Posh Chalk paste lubricant before using it. The green bronze metallic paste was then dabbed on down the side of the canvas in order to blend in with the green tones on this side of the Muller's Peonies decoupage design. Along this side of the canvas, there was also an area that needed to blend into the pink petals of the flower in the design. So, SollyJo applied some Posh Chalk red Alizarin metallic paste onto this part of the canvas. Due to the nature of her application method, the pastes had created a slightly raised texture. So before continuing, this was flattened using a Posh Chalk premium finishing trowel and then force dried. SollyJo felt like the piece could still use some more layers and visual variance. So she decided to use the Posh Chalk Dainty Trellis stencil and the Posh Chalk Athenian Plaster. The stencil was placed on top of the canvas, and she decanted a few scoops of the Posh Chalk Athenian Plaster so she could stir in some of the Posh Chalk Arctic White colour kick. She then applied this mixture across the entire surface of the stencil using a Posh Chalk premium finishing trowel. The finishing trowels make it very convenient to stencil with completely equal distribution without leaving any brush or direction marks in your design. As you can see, the vibrant white she had chosen really made the Dainty Trellis design pop. There was still a lot more left to do on this project, so SollyJo force dried the stenciling with a heat gun so she could continue straight away. She then began warming up her chosen trim, TR805. She wanted to use this trim to create a top and bottom border for the project, so she applied a strip of WoodUglue to the bottom and top edges of the canvas, and then spread the glue out with a small paintbrush to ensure that it covered the entire area of the trim's footprint. SollyJo then unfurled a section of her trim, using the canvas to measure the appropriate length before cutting it off from the coil. This section of trim was then pressed down onto the surface on top of the freshly applied WoodUglue. Then any excess glue that leaked out from underneath the trim was cleaned away with a wet paintbrush. For the other border, SollyJo wanted to do something slightly different to provide the piece with a little bit of variety. Due to the complex design of the TR805 trim, she was able to cut off some of the design and create a distinct looking trim for her other border that still fit with the style of the rest of the project. This customised section of trim was also pressed onto the surface, and any excess glue was removed with a wet paintbrush. Then, to ensure a strong adherence, both trim sections were heated in situ and pressed down once more. Moving into the final stages of this project, SollyJo decided to mix a little bit more Arctic White Athenian Plaster. Before applying it, she decided to use the Posh Chalk metallic pastes to paint the trim borders she had just created. She began by spritzing the customised trim border with water before stippling Posh Chalk red Alizarin metallic paste onto its entire length. She then stippled on some Posh Chalk brown Van Dyke metallic paste in a few areas to more effectively blend the trim into the colours of the decoupage design. This process was then repeated for the other trim border, except with the Posh Chalk green bronze and dark green metallic pastes being used as well. Once all of the paste had been force dried, it was time to finalise the project by applying the Arctic White coloured Athenian Plaster. SollyJo used a sea sponge to dab the mixture onto her canvas, making sure not to cover up the flowers in her decoupage's design. This dabbing method creates a raised texture effect on the surface, which allowed SollyJo to flatten all of the Athenian plaster with a Posh chalk finishing trowel once she was satisfied with the amount on her canvas. Flattening the Athenian plaster like this maintains the slightly raised texture, but also creates a smooth, glossy surface once it has dried. You can already see how it shines when the light hits it. So, here is the result. We really loved the natural looking aging created on this piece. It looks just like a real antique piece of art that was lost to time. Please let us know in the comments below what you thought of this, and if we inspired you to start your own project, let us know. We would love to see it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, it really helps us out. And if you want to see a new project video every single week, subscribe to the channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.